From the first brick that LEGO ever made to light up lightsabers in LEGO Star Wars. These are 98 things that only OG LEGO fans remember. Starting with the complete takeover of stickers. This is everyone's least favorite part of a LEGO set. You try your best to get it on straight, just like how it is in the instructions, but it's always just a little bit off. These things have gotten way more common in today's sets, but it wasn't always like this. LEGO fans all over the internet talk about how it feels like there are way more stickers in sets than there ever used to be, but finding the actual evidence is pretty difficult. The best I got is this picture of a tile piece that I don't even know the name of, but it's a perfect example of what's been going on. Another element that's been phased out over the years are wires, but this one is probably for the best. These days, most of the motors are battery powered, but back in the day, they had to be hooked up to a power source just so they could run. They were mostly used in the power functions theme, and since it started back in 2008, it makes sense why LEGO wasn't really making wireless stuff yet. A big change that was hiding right under our noses though, was the disappearance of fabric capes. These things were in basically every set I wanted when I was a kid. Jedis wore capes, and so did superheroes, so I was putting these things on minifigures all the time back in the day. As of recently though, LEGO's been starting to phase them out. A bunch of different minifigures have rubber capes now. There's Batman in the Harley Quinn and Mr. Freeze fight set, Magneto in the X-Men Mansion set, and Thor in the Thor vs. Surtur construction figure set. As cool as these pieces look, they kind of limit what LEGO's able to do with them. Back in the 1990s, they introduced this multicolored dragon cape in the system theme, which looks sick, but if they tried to do this with the new rubber capes, I feel like it wouldn't look as good. I guess this update is kind of hit or miss, but this next one was an absolute downgrade, no doubt. Do you notice how there aren't really any shiny pieces in LEGO anymore? There used to be a bunch of them, on lightsaber hilts, vintage crowns for the castle theme, and even on certain minifigures, but we just don't get them anymore. Luckily, there is an actual explanation for this one. Basically, because the paint LEGO was using wasn't the best quality, it peeled off pretty fast. So at one point or another, they just started using a color called metal light gray for silver, and a bunch of different ones for gold. They don't look anywhere near as good, and to be honest, I feel like LEGO should have just found a better chrome paint to use. Am I spitting here? I feel like that definitely would have been the better move, but let me know what you think. Moving on from chrome pieces though, LEGO actually made a super small update to their bricks somewhat recently. After they patented the stud and tube coupling system in 1958, the bricks were much better at keeping themselves together. But looking at this brick today, something just seems off about it, right? Well, it's because they hadn't added the support beams to the tubes yet. This became very common around 2008, so it makes sense why when I look at bricks that don't have these beams, they almost look naked. LEGO doesn't just make tiny updates to pieces though, they do it to minifigures too. Back in the early 2000s, you could buy a magnetic minifigure that didn't have this giant brick podium underneath it. They made a few different sets, but the most popular one was the LEGO Batman set. But what was wrong with these minifigures? If they were so cool, why did they end up changing it? Well, the magnets were actually little pieces in the back of the minifigure's legs, and once parents of young kids found out about it, they weren't too happy. LEGO had to stop making magnetic minifigures this way because it was a choking hazard, which is honestly a shame. The seamless look these Batman minifigures have compared to the ones we have now is so much better. Depending on what you're looking at, sometimes the old LEGO really was just better. And a perfect example of that is what LEGO did to the box design for LEGO Castle. The castle theme always had a blue sky with clouds in the background on the box. It was a super nice design for the theme, and it was a surefire way to know that you were buying a castle set. LEGO Castle has actually been retired since 2016 now, but because of how famous it was, they turned it into a sub-theme of the Icon series in 2022. Now, I don't have any problems with the sets in this sub-theme. In fact, I think the Lion Knight's castle is one of the coolest LEGO castles ever, but every set in the Icons theme comes in a blacked out box. Now, they didn't do that for this set in particular, but if you're going to change the design on the box, why not give it the classic blue sky that everyone knows and loves? This change didn't really make sense to me, but LEGO fans had it way worse than this before 1990. This is going to sound crazy, but LEGO didn't make the first brick separator until that year. So before then, if you had two 1x2 plate pieces stacked on top of each other, you were basically cooked. But even then, we didn't get the one we have now until 2011. For some reason, all they did was change the color a few different times over the years, then come out of nowhere with the orange one in 2011. If you were playing with LEGO before the 90s, you definitely would have noticed this update. So let me show you something I guarantee you haven't noticed. This is a transparent brick. Looks pretty good, right? Well, what if I told you that this is actually an old design, and that most of the transparent bricks these days look like this? Yeah, I know. This downgrade is up there with the chrome change. I mean, why would you want to make transparent bricks less transparent? Now, don't get me wrong, certain sets have bricks that are super see-through, but that's definitely not the case for all of them. I can't lie, I've been hating on LEGO pretty hard with these last few updates, so let me show you one that was actually one of the best moves they've ever made. Obviously, we all know how LEGO instructions work. You look at the page and it tells you what to do. But back in the day, this was definitely not the case. These are a couple pages of instructions for set 948 from 1978. I mean, this is basically a free-for-all. There are a few arrows pointing you in the right direction, but for the most part, you're completely on your own. This isn't even as bad as it gets, though. Let me show you the difference between the original Forest Men hideout set from 1988 versus the remastered one from 2022. These are a few pages from the 2022 version. Nothing out of the ordinary, of course. But look at the pages from the one from 1988. I mean, this is just crazy. The difference between page 2 and 4 is out of this world, and they barely even told you anything. Like I said, this update was 100% needed, so let's take a look at another one. This is a police officer minifigure from 1978, but I bet you already knew that. This guy looks old. There isn't a whole lot going on with this minifigure, so when you compare it to one of the police officers we have today, it's a night and day difference. I'd be super surprised if any of you missed this change over the years, but I had to throw it in here, because imagine LEGO released a minifigure with this amount of detail today. There'd be an entire mob outside their HQ. Something people should riot over, though, is LEGO taking away light-up bricks. Specifically, light-up lightsabers for LEGO Star Wars. I've been a LEGO Star Wars fan my whole life, and I completely missed this update. Back in the early 2000s, they released a special type of Star Wars minifigure. All you had to do was put a stud on the back of the hilt and push the head down. Then the lightsaber would come to life. I genuinely can't believe I missed something as cool as this, especially since I literally could have gotten some when I was a kid. But I guess it just goes to show how sneaky LEGO can be. Another element they added then slowly took away like this were Legoland pamphlets showing off their new sets. I'm not exactly sure when they started putting these in boxes, and honestly, I'm not even sure when they stopped. All I do know is that they did it before and they don't do it now. Pretty much every single one of these pamphlets is considered to be vintage LEGO, which means they probably haven't done it since before the year 2000. These pamphlets had all sorts of cool looking promo for sets that were coming out soon. Like, look at this one I found on eBay. There's promo for sets from a bunch of different themes. Space, pirates, Technic, it's all the classics. This wasn't the only thing that was common with old boxes though. LEGO also used to show off a bunch of different ways to build a set on the box. I'm not talking about a 3-in-1 set though, where the entire point is to build it one way, take it apart, and build it another way with the help of instructions. These builds were put there purely to spark the imagination. These days, it kind of feels like LEGO only makes sets that are meant to be built once, then put on display. But back in the day, they were super dedicated to the play features, and wanted people to make all sorts of cool stuff with their bricks, no matter what the instructions said. We don't really see that too often these days, and I doubt they're ever bringing it back. But if there's anything that LEGO was doing before that they might actually bring back one day, it's what I'm about to show you next. Back in the 90s, LEGO collabed with Kellogg's, the cereal brand. And I'm not too sure what gets put in cereal boxes these days, but back in my day, there was always some cool toy or prize that you had a chance of winning. The only way to find out was to open the box and pray. And back in the 90s, you might have gotten lucky enough to see a polybag for a Toucan Sam set fall out. It wasn't just him though. You also had a chance of winning Tony the Tiger or the Keebler Man. All three of these sets are super uncommon now, and I wasn't even born when they were around. But this is something I could definitely see LEGO coming back to. Something they're absolutely never doing again though is painting directly onto pieces instead of using a print. Let me show you what I mean. Not too long ago, it wasn't uncommon for LEGO to use paint on certain pieces. They did this a lot with head accessories for minifigures, but the most obvious ones were the headdresses in the LEGO Indians theme. This design is clearly painted on, not printed, and it's become so rare that a certain minifigure in LEGO Star Wars is worth an insane amount of money, simply because the headpiece was painted. It's in the Cloud City set, which was already exclusive, so that definitely helps drive up the price. But I'm talking about the Boba Fett minifigure. The design on his helmet was painted on, instead of printed, like how most minifigures were in 2003. This is the only Boba Fett minifigure that has this design style, and because of it, it's worth over $2,000. And the set it's in is worth over $8,000. Like I said though, I don't think they're ever bringing this back. And another thing that's in the same boat are 32 by 32 base plates. At one point or another, LEGO completely phased out adding base plates to their sets, and it's been like this for so long that I bet you didn't even know they did it in the first place. Literally the only theme that still has them is the modular buildings theme, and that's because if they didn't, the sets wouldn't be modular. From the 1970s to the 1990s, LEGO was including these things in a bunch of different sets. It's in the police headquarters from 1979, the Shell service station from 1983, the airport set from 1985, and way more. It's been in 102 different sets in total, most of which were released in that 20-year period. So it's safe to say that if it's not modular, it's not getting one of these base plates. We can all agree that it'd be nice to have a few of these things laying around. But sometimes LEGO makes something super sick, adds it to a few sets, then retires it for good. Back in 1993, they released the Imperial flagship set in the Pirates theme. And as cool as the ship is, I want to focus on just one singular piece. You see this compass right here? It might look like a regular printed compass piece, but it actually works. This was the first set to ever have this piece, but the thing is, only 9 other sets in LEGO history have ever included this piece. The last ones being the Spaniard ship and the pirate battleship in 2001. This piece never got the love it deserved, and as cool as it is, I don't think it ever will. LEGO put this thing in the vault a long time ago, and I doubt it'll ever be featured in a set again. And it's in the LEGO Ninjago City Garden set. This is one of the biggest sets in the entire Ninjago theme, so as a result, it also has an insane amount of Easter eggs and references. But the one I want to show you is actually this gray minifigure sitting all by itself. All the die-hard Ninjago fans probably got this off rip, but this is actually a memorial for Zane, one of the 6 main ninjas in the Ninjago TV show. He actually died way more than once, but because of how significant it was, the designers gave him his very own memorial. The only thing better than references like these is when LEGO references other themes in their sets, like what they did in the Indiana Jones Temple of the Golden Idol set. This set is super small, so you'd think it'd be pretty difficult to slip a reference in here, but it's actually hiding in plain sight. The set shows Indy doing what he does best, stealing treasure from underground. But if you have Jimmy Neutron level LEGO knowledge, you might have noticed something on the wall where the Golden Idol is sitting. One of the faces is actually a King Kahuka mask from the LEGO Islanders theme, which hasn't been around since 2001. There's also a funny little minifigure head sticking his tongue out on the other side, which is pretty funny. But to catch that Islanders mask, you'd really need to know your stuff. There's no way you know this next one though. Apparently, it's impossible to subscribe to my channel in 3 seconds or less, so let's put it to the test. I'm gonna start a timer, so if you can do it, let me know down in the comments. Ready? Go. Now that that's done, let's move on to the next reference. A few years ago, Tiago Catarino left LEGO for personal reasons and ended up becoming a super well-known LEGO YouTuber. When he worked at LEGO, he designed the ship in a bottle set and left a little tile piece with his initials TC on the set. Fast forward a couple years later, and he actually has his very own gravestone piece that's been featured in 2 different sets. The first one is the Haunted House set from 2020, which Tiago helped with before he left. To honor his work at LEGO, his designer friends made that tombstone piece and put him in the front yard to honor his memory and everything he did at LEGO. It's a funny joke, since of course he isn't dead, but the second set this piece is in is the Titanic. Before Tiago left LEGO, he actually pitched a LEGO Titanic idea to them, and not too long after, an official set was released. Tiago wasn't taking any credit for this, but then he saw that very same gravestone piece in the instructions, and how else could you react besides being super excited? LEGO designers include themselves in their sets all the time, like Tiago did with the Haunted House. But nobody does it quite like Chris McVie. Chris started working at LEGO in 2019, and one of his most well-known sets is the modular police station set. Not only does it have the super famous laundromat billboard reference, but there are tons of play features too. But the best part by far is how Chris slipped himself into this set. There seems to be a donut thief on the loose, stealing all of the cops' favorite food. But if we take a look at this minifigure, then look at this picture of Chris, something's going on here. Are you telling me that the donut thief has been Chris McVie the whole time? This is a super funny cameo, but the modular buildings theme is full of cool stuff like this, like the one in the boutique hotel set. This is the 16th set in the modular building series, but did you know that 20 of these sets were designed by the LEGO creator experts? These are some of the most talented people at LEGO, and this is actually the team that Tiago presented the Titanic idea to back in 2019. They've made sets like the Manchester United Stadium from 2020, the Porsche 911 from 2021, the Taj Mahal from 2017, the list goes on and on. Not too many people knew about this theme before the Titanic set was released, and after that huge success, they probably wanted to pay themselves some respect. And to do that, they included a brick-built version of the Creator Expert logo in the boutique hotel set. These other two builds are also references, but the whole point was that it looks like a mini art gallery. And I have to say, the Creator Expert logo fits right in. Another set with seamless references that you never know about is the Lion Knights castle set. This is LEGO's modern take on the super famous castle theme. And honestly, the set looks really good. It's a giant gray castle with knights, wizards, forestmen, and so many more iconic minifigures. But the references are hiding inside. This castle can actually be open on the backside, and if you look at the top room on the second from the right side, these weird yellow bricks might ring a bell. Well, it's because they're actually a mini brick-built version of the now $10,000 yellow castle set from 1979. It's by far one of LEGO's most famous sets, so it's no wonder the designers referenced it here. However, I did say there were multiple references, and the second one is a lot easier to find with the castle closed. On the right side of the castle, you'll see this giant tree with a beehive in it, and because of the minifigures in this set, we know who this tree belongs to. The forestmen are most famously known for their hideouts, so of course LEGO had to include one in this set. You can actually flip the rocks sitting on the water and find that little hideout, but it doesn't end there. Once this is open, you can also slide the back wall of a prison cell over, showing that a particular cell has a major defect. This is definitely one of the coolest play features LEGO's made recently. But switching gears, I actually want to take you back to the LEGO Ninjago City Garden set. Like I said, there are loads of Easter eggs and references in this set, but did you know there's a literal Easter egg in this set? Okay, I guess it's not exactly literal, like the one in the Atari set, but do you see all these tile pieces with Japanese writing? Well, one of them actually directly translates to Easter egg, which is pretty sick. But why is this tile piece even here? And where can you find it? Well, you actually have to completely remove this little ninja shop, and you'll find it sitting underneath it. That isn't it though. This tile was covering a gray box with a 1x1 green transparent piece, and this is by far one of the deepest cuts I've seen in a LEGO set. This singular piece is actually a reference to a giant cyberpunk city made by Brolug that was on display at Brickworld in Chicago in 2013. Now, Brolug was actually a group of people that made huge builds like this one, and from what I can find, the designer of Ninjago City Gardens, Marcus Rollbuehler, was never in the group, so I guess he made the reference simply because he liked the build. It all started with that Japanese tile piece though, and funnily enough, there are pieces like this in a bunch of different sets, like the LEGO Star Wars Cantina. I'm talking about this piece with R2-D2 and C-3PO on it, with a line of this weird language on top. This isn't just some weird language though, it's Arabesh, the most spoken language in the Star Wars universe. It translates to the word wanted, which actually makes perfect sense for this set. In A New Hope, an Imperial spy named Garandan Ez Zavor was informing the Empire about Luke and everyone he was with, and he actually got his own minifigure in the set. In the movie, everyone escaped safely, but as a result, the two droids ended up on the Empire's wanted list. This is probably because Darth Vader heard about what happened on Tatooine and wanted to get his hands on them immediately. After all, they are his old friends. Not that they'd be happy to see him after what happened though. Yeesh. Anyways, the next references I want to show you are in the LEGO Seinfeld set. This set dropped back in 2021, and as cool as it is, I actually want to show you the fridge. It's decked out with magnets, with the most obvious one being Superman. This one is here just like it is in the real show, but there's a specific picture on the LEGO fridge that isn't on the real one, and it really stands out. I'm talking about this random dude. Like me, you might be wondering who this guy is. Well, his name is Larry David, and he's actually one of the main people that helped Jerry Seinfeld produce the show. Props to LEGO for showing David some love. I guess he just wasn't cool enough to get his face on the fridge in the real show. But then again, he's not Superman. Up next is the fact that this Women of NASA set is a reference in and of itself. The set features 4 women: Nancy Grace Roman, Margaret Hamilton, Sally Ride, and Mae Jemison. All of these women played critical roles in getting NASA to where it is today. Whether it be astronomy, engineering, physics, you name it, and one of these 4 women probably did it. Now, let me direct your attention to Margaret Hamilton. Her big role was being a computer programmer, which for the 1960s is a huge deal. If it wasn't for her, NASA literally never would have been able to get Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon. So they have her to thank. Now, about that reference. Her build in LEGO might look like nothing, but it's actually referencing this picture of her standing next to her source code for the Apollo guidance computer in 1969. It's by far her most famous picture, so it only makes sense that LEGO would honor it in this set. While I'm talking about space, let me show you some super discreet references in the LEGO Galaxy Explorer from from 2022. Just like the Cantina and Ninjago City Garden sets, the tile pieces in here have some super sick references. Since this set is a spaceship, there are a lot of different computer screens on the inside. Now, you'd think these would just have random fake planets on them, or maybe even binary code, but two of them in particular are way cooler than that. One of them is this radar scanner piece, and if you know your LEGO themes, you'll know that this is actually the Blacktron logo. Blacktron is the name of the villain group in the space theme, so this logo fits perfectly into this set. The second tile piece is in the living quarters in the back of the ship, but instead of a radar scanner, it's actually supposed to be a live video feed. Now, this may look like literally nothing, but this giant circle thing is actually a Tahoe canister from Bionicle. It looks like this video feed is one of the astronauts finding life on another planet, which is a little funny, since Bionicle's been dead for a while now. Getting back down to Earth, there's actually a really cool reference hiding in the attic of the LEGO Disney Castle set from 2016. Disney's made a million different spin-offs and characters since they started back in 1923, so the amount of references that could be here is off the charts. However, the designers chose a really specific movie to reference, Fantasia. This movie is from 1940 and is a lot different from regular Disney movies. Instead of your regular story, there are 8 different segments that all look completely different and tell a different story. And of course, Mickey Mouse is in his magical outfit, which came from this movie. Now, if we make our way to the attic of the LEGO set, we can actually see Mickey's Fantasia hat sitting in a chest in storage. It doesn't fit on his head or anything, which honestly would have been really cool, but the fact that Fantasia got referenced at all is pretty crazy. Another set with references that are high in the sky is the LEGO Tree of Creativity set. If you've never seen this set before, don't worry, you're not going crazy. It was originally given to people who went to the LEGO Inside Tour back in 2017, but then was later sold at the LEGO House in Denmark, so it's no wonder you've never seen it on the shelves. The craziest part about this set, though, isn't the fact that it's super rare, and it isn't the fact that there are references to LEGO themes all over it. It's the fact that it's a mini version of the real LEGO Tree of Creativity. Yes, that's actually a thing. The reason this set was sold in the LEGO House is because that's actually where you can find the real tree. It's over 45 feet tall and made up of over 6 million bricks. Just like its mini counterpart, there are smaller builds all over the leaves, but the most notable one is the crane at the top. Just like Margaret Hamilton in the Women of NASA set, the Tree of Creativity is a reference in and of itself, but this last one is a classic LEGO Easter egg. It's hidden in the Penguin set, and just like how it is with most Easter eggs, it's literally nowhere to be found. But this one is actually hidden under the set, just like that insane reference in the Ninjago City Garden set. You have to take literally everything off, but once you do, you'll find a very fitting snowflake. LEGO does this a lot in their small seasonal sets, like this carrot hiding in the Easter Bunny set, or this bat hiding in the owl set for Halloween. This just proves that no matter how small the set is, there's always something to find. Besides those sets from the Coca-Cola soccer theme, there's literally nothing in those. In the LEGO Spider-Man Ultimate Bridge Battle set, if you think you know all the Easter eggs and references in this set, guess again, because as random as this 1962 piece may look, it's a reference to something that only true Spider-Man fans would know. 1962 is actually the year when Spider-Man was first seen in a comic book. He was featured in Amazing Fantasy Volume 15, way back in the day, so I highly doubt you've ever seen it before. There's no way you know about this reference, but some of the other secrets in this video are even harder to spot, so make sure you watch all the way until the end. Up next is actually a secret second part to an Easter egg that's already super famous, and it's in the LEGO Mario Question Block set. Since this set is based on a video game, there are loads of Easter eggs you can find, but one of the most famous ones is the fact that you can pull up a tab on the front of the set and find a mini brick-built Bowser. As crazy as it sounds, this Easter egg actually has a second part. To find it, all you have to do is push down on the platform that Bowser is standing on, and an entirely separate compartment will pop out at the bottom. The coolest thing about this second part is that it's a huge reference in and of itself. In Super Mario N64, the only way Mario can beat Bowser is if he picks him up by his tail and spins him around. And with this secret platform, you can actually recreate that, which is super sick. Now, this next one is definitely weird. I'm not sure why, but apparently you can't subscribe to this channel in 3 seconds or less. I'm gonna start a timer, and if you can subscribe, let me know down in the comments. Ready? Go. Did it work? I hope it did, because I have to move on to the next secret detail. Most of the time, the craziest references in LEGO are in the pieces, especially for sets like the Daily Bugle. But this time, I have one for you that's hidden in a minifigure. This set is notorious for how many minifigures it comes with, which of course I'm not complaining about, but it makes it super easy to miss a certain detail. The Jonah Jameson minifigure has 2 faceplates on his headpiece, and one of them is a reference to a very specific scene in the movies. LEGO doesn't even advertise this on the website, so you'd literally never know he had 2. But the second faceplate is him with webs over his mouth. If you don't know the Spider-Man movies like the back of your hand, this probably went right over your head. But in Spider-Man from 2002, there's a scene where the Green Goblin attacks Jameson inside the Daily Bugle. Luckily for him, Peter was just in his office, so Spider-Man was able to get in between the 2 of them. However, as usual, Jameson starts running his mouth, and instead of just telling him to shut up, Spider-Man webs his mouth shut so he can't talk anymore. This was a super funny scene in the movie, and I love that the designers brought that moment over to the set. I mean, they were super dedicated. The designers leave hidden messages, like the one in the LEGO Ideas typewriter set. Since this set is in LEGO Ideas, that means it was made by a fan, and that fan's name is Steve Guinness. Instead of the typical initials that you'll usually see, like on the license plate of the James Bond car set, Guinness used this as a chance to send a message to anybody who might build his set. On the back, there's something that looks like a serial number, but these letters actually stand for something. The first 2 are his initials, but the letters that follow stand for never give up on your dreams. And honestly, this is probably the best message you can send to anybody. It sounds corny, but it packs a punch. I mean, I'm chasing my dreams right now just by making this video. So to keep things going, let me show you an Easter egg in the LEGO Atari set. If you've watched videos on LEGO Easter eggs, then you've probably seen the Secret Mario level in the NES set. And this Atari one is actually pretty similar. Instead of taking a panel off like how you do for the NES, instead you just pull the flat part of the Atari forward. And when you go far enough, a cool little living room will pop up. It looks like it's supposed to be a typical kid's room back when this console first came out, but I can't be too sure. I mean, I'm not old or anything. Regardless, this is a really cool Easter egg, especially because it's basically a play feature. But there's a certain type of Easter egg in LEGO sets that's a cut above the rest. I'm talking about when LEGO throws in Easter eggs that were made in real life, like when they put the A113 logo in the Cars spy plane set, except the one I want to show you is way more well known. I'm talking about hidden Mickeys, and in case you've never heard of them, they're basically Easter eggs in real life. If you go to any Disney theme park, you can find these things hidden throughout the entire park. People go crazy looking for them, to the point where they even try to find and count every single one at every park. But what set did LEGO throw a hidden Mickey into? Well, the answer is Elsa's castle, which is low-key kinda crazy if I'm being honest. I wouldn't expect a set this small and underhyped to have an Easter egg this meaningful, but maybe that was just LEGO trying to make it harder to find. Because the harder it is to find, the more rewarding it feels. And the knowledge you need to understand the Apollo 11 lander is probably something a lot of us don't have. The details in this set are unmatched. I especially love the little minifigure footprints on the moon. But what I want to show you is actually hidden inside the lander. If you take off the top part of the set, you can see 2 barrels sitting near the middle, one white and one red. Well, these barrels are actually supposed to carry fuel for the rocket and an oxidizer. I just learned this right now, but apparently it's impossible to use fuel in space without an oxidizer. So not only is this set made to minifigure scale, but it's super accurate to the real world. With stuff like this, you can tell that LEGO really cares about people. But there's a new feature with certain sets that takes this meaning to a whole new level, and it's hiding in plain sight. LEGO just recently collabed with Hidden Sunflowers, a company that originated in England. They're an organization that helps people with non-visible disabilities discreetly let people know that they have one, and all they have to do is wear a sunflower lanyard. LEGO announced the collab late last year, and there are already 3 sets that feature minifigures with these lanyards. There's one in the LEGO Friends Heart Lake City Airport set, one in the up-and-coming First Time at the Airport set from LEGO Duplo, and the last one is hidden in the 2-door corner set in the Modular Buildings theme. If you take a look in the loft apartment, you'll find a tile piece on the wall with a little sunflower lanyard printed on it. The girl who lives in this apartment in the LEGO world is neurodivergent, so she lets people know by wearing her lanyard. This Easter egg has made this apartment pretty famous, but there's another LEGO apartment that's way more famous than this one, the LEGO Friends set. Obviously, this set is famous because of the show, but did you know that LEGO has an entire page on their website where they show you a ton of references in the set? LEGO claims that only the truest of Friends fans would be able to spot every reference, but by far the hardest one to know about were the chicken and duck pieces. These two pieces were in Joey and Chandler's apartment, and for those of you that don't get the reference, these two guys actually adopted a chick and a duck in season 3 of the show. Now, even though there are way more that I could talk about, I don't want to bore you guys with a bunch of Friends references. So instead, I'm going to show you some rapid-fire Easter eggs from the LEGO Movie 2 Apocalypseburg set. Since it's from a post-apocalyptic world, the designers reused a ton of LEGO elements from different sets, since the characters had to rebuild their own place to live. Number 1 is this design at the top of the set, which is actually a reference to LEGO Bionicle. Number 2 is the fact that LEGO used part of the giant truck set from 1996. Number 3 are these structures right here that look like they're straight from Ready Player One. Number 4 is that this gray piece is actually the engine from Hulk's car in the Hulk vs. Red Hulk set. And number 5 is that this piece right here is actually from the front of the Batmobile set from the LEGO Batman movie theme. All of these references are super sick, and some of them are way harder to find than others. But if there's one thing that's cooler than deep references like these, it's hidden minifigures. And the LEGO Disney Villain Icon set has loads of them. But first, take a look at this set. Isn't it sick? It's made up of some of the most popular Disney movies ever made. But not just that. They're made into VHS covers, VHS tapes, and books too. The secret minifigures are even cooler though. The first one is hidden in the apple from Snow White, where you can find the evil queen in her old woman disguise. The next one I'll show you is in the Sleeping Beauty VHS. And for this one, if you pull down at the top part of the graphic, Maleficent can be found lurking in the shadows. Next is the Aladdin tape at the bottom. And just like the Sleeping Beauty one, you just pull from the top of the graphic and find Jafar laying down. The last one is way harder to find though, and it's in the Beauty and the Beast book. At the bottom of the book, there's a little compartment that can be pulled out like a drawer, and this is where you can find Gaston. I honestly can't believe that LEGO hid this many minifigures in one set, but it makes it super fun for the builder, especially if they want to show it to someone. The hidden figures in the Capitol building set are a little different though. This set is part of the LEGO architecture theme, so the designers were super dedicated to getting every detail exactly right, including all of the statues in the middle of the set. Inside the real building, a bunch of statues surround the perimeter of the room, but since the LEGO version isn't scaled to minifigure size, the designers had to improvise. Instead of minifigs, they used blank nanofigures, one of the smallest figures made by LEGO. These figures represent the statues perfectly, so although it wasn't necessary, it makes the set that much better. Another super discreet detail can be found in the Land Rover Classic Defender set, and of course, since it's a car, it's on the back license plate. This isn't your average LEGO license plate Easter egg though. Instead of referencing the designer, these letters and numbers are actually important milestones in Land Rover's career. The first one, L316, is actually the model of Land Rover that LEGO used for the set, but the second one is a reference to a very specific Land Rover named Hugh 166. This car is quite literally called the most famous Land Rover ever, but it's for good reason. It's actually the first Land Rover ever made. Its registration number was Hugh 166, hence the name Hugh. But it's crazy that just 3 letters have such a deep backstory. When LEGO uses numbers and letters like this, it makes everyone happy. But have you ever seen a set where the number of pieces is a reference to? It's most famously done in the NASA Apollo Saturn V set, where the amount of pieces matches the year humanity first stepped on the moon, 1969. This type of Easter egg is actually a little more common than you might think, because something similar happened with the Mona Lisa set. It has 1,503 pieces, but because of the number, you probably wouldn't bother to think of it as a year. However, 1503 is actually the year that Leonardo da Vinci started painting the Mona Lisa. It took him 16 years to do it, but it's a well-known fact that 1503 is when he started. Is LEGO still putting Easter eggs and references like these in their sets though? It's a good question, so let me show you the brand new LEGO Twilight Cullen House. To answer the question, yes, of course LEGO is still going super hard with the Easter eggs. In fact, just like the Friends set, the Cullen House also has a page on LEGO's website, breaking down a bunch of different references. The funniest ones by far, though, have to be the baseball references in the living room. If you've never seen the Twilight series, basically, the Cullens are a family of vampires, but there's a super famous scene in the movies where they actually play baseball and use their powers to their advantage. It's only famous because of how random it is for the movie. So to commemorate it, LEGO added a baseball hat on the coffee table and a tile with bats on it on the wall. The only way to make LEGO Easter eggs any better is if they're funny. And to be honest, it doesn't get much better than this. Did you know that at one point, you could trade in your LEGO bricks for money? LEGO wasn't handing out cold hard cash or anything, but late last year, they launched a program called Brick Takeback. This program is exactly what it sounds like. Out of nowhere, LEGO wanted to buy back the bricks they've sold over the years, so they allowed fans to give back bricks, minifigures, and everything else as long as it was in good condition. LEGO paid people $6 per pound of pieces, and instead of money, they paid them with a gift card instead. This is a super crazy fact I didn't even know about, and I literally run a LEGO YouTube channel. So you already know the other facts in this video are going to be mind-boggling, so make sure you watch all the way until the end. On the topic of bricks though, did you know that LEGO sold so many of them that every single person in the world could own 75? An article from Gizmodo said that in total, LEGO sold around 400 billion bricks. But that article is from all the way back in 2008, so what's the number today? Well, according to BBC News, LEGO sells 75 billion bricks every year. So if you do the math, that would mean LEGO sold 600 billion bricks in their whole career. The population on Earth today is roughly 8 billion, so if you do the math again, that would leave 75 bricks per person. I have to say, when you really look at it, LEGO's hit some insane milestones. I mean, that's a number I can't even comprehend. Something that's even harder to comprehend, though, is the fact that LEGO didn't sell traditional instructions in sets they made back in the day. Before the bricks we all know and love, LEGO made these things called automatic binding bricks in 1949. They're very similar to the bricks that made LEGO famous, but they're still slightly different. Because it was so early in their career, every set with these binding bricks was very simple, and instead of instructions, the sets came with a booklet showcasing everything that was possible to build with the bricks that came in the box. There aren't a ton of pictures online, but it looks like LEGO was giving very light instructions on how to build the different structures. By 1954, though, they had it all figured out. I mean, even though it's super old, these pages are clearly showing you how to build a LEGO set. Up next is the fact that LEGO loves YouTube. They're always leaving comments on people's videos, which I'd go crazy if it happened to me. But would be even better is if you subscribe to my channel. LEGO and I both would really appreciate it. Anyways, back to the facts, something LEGO didn't have back in those days were brick separators, which would have been super useful. We've all seen a brick separator before. You know, that big orange thing that probably confused you when you were a kid? Well, did you know that it didn't always look like that? The first brick separator released back in 1990, and instead of orange, it was actually this super dull gray color, and it also looked a little different. They didn't go straight from this gray one to the one that we have today though. LEGO made a pit stop in 1996 with this green separator, and went back to the gray one in 2006. The one we have now was eventually made in 2011, and since then, LEGO hasn't made a new one. Another thing LEGO made along the way were sets with lights and sound effects in them. Now, obviously something like this would have been way too advanced for a set from the 1950s, which is why LEGO didn't actually do this until 1985. They rolled out this forgotten feature with LEGO Light and Sound, which is an electronic system used in a lot of LEGO town and space themed sets. But when you hear about how they actually made this possible, it'll make sense why they stopped doing it a long time ago. The system came with a battery box and conducted power to the bricks by using metal that was built into the studs. This gave us some super cool stuff, like the light bricks that come in a bunch of different colors. But doing something like this at the size LEGO is now probably just wouldn't be sustainable. Listen, I'd never be mad at bricks that light up and have cool sound effects, but from a business perspective, I have to side with LEGO on this one. Funnily enough though, this isn't the only fun brick that LEGO stopped making. Up until a few years ago, LEGO was actually making chrome-plated pieces. They're most famously known for being used on the hilts of lightsabers in LEGO Star Wars, but LEGO used chrome pieces everywhere. From minifigure arms to crowns from LEGO Castle and even Hal's mask from Bionicle, they really did use them everywhere. So the question is, why did they stop? Well, given enough time, the chrome paint actually wears off pretty easily. And even if you aren't playing with them very much, they still scratch super easily, which is still pretty ugly. These days, instead of chrome, LEGO will usually use a color called metal light gray, which definitely isn't as shiny as the old chrome paint, but it also doesn't wear as easily, which I guess is a good trade-off. Although there is one piece LEGO still makes using chrome. It's this gold utensil ring piece, which is famously used in sets from the Lord of the Rings. So I guess chrome LEGO hasn't been completely phased out yet. This seems like a pretty big failure for them, but it's nowhere near as bad as the LEGO vacuum from 1991. It's called the Brick Vac, and no, it wasn't an actual vacuum. Instead, it was LEGO's attempt to make a tool that's solely meant to pick up LEGO bricks. It's great in theory, but in practice, not so much. If the bricks aren't super spread out, the vacuum just won't pick up all of them in one go. Since you have to use it by hand, it's only as powerful as the person who's using it. And since most of these people are probably kids, it's pretty easy to see why it failed so hard. I saw somewhere that apparently businesses use the Brick Vac as an example of what not to do, which is super funny, but I really hope for LEGO's sake that it isn't true. I mean, that's super embarrassing. But of course, LEGO is anything but bad at what they do. Like, they even made a working compass piece for the Pirates theme back in the day. People have made a bunch of different DIY LEGO compasses that actually work, but did you know LEGO made one themselves? And better yet, did you know that it can fit in a minifigure's hand? You can find it in the Skull's Eye Schooner set from 1993, and it's basically the size of a stud. It's meant to be used as part of the set, which is why it can fit in a minifigure's hand, but it's super sick to know that it actually works. I mean, LEGO really didn't have to do this at all. People were pretty excited when they found out about this, but one thing they absolutely hated was when LEGO made sets that were only released in China. I'm sure we all know, but China has their own New Year separate from ours in America, and it's a super big deal for them. Since LEGO is all-inclusive, they've been making sets for the Chinese New Year for a while now. But back in 2019, the sets LEGO made for that year's New Year were only available in China. The two sets were the traditional Chinese dinner and dragon dance sets, and fans were absolutely outraged. I'm not exactly sure if LEGO ever sold these sets in particular outside of China, but I know for sure that they never did anything like this ever again. The amount of backlash they got was genuinely insane, so there's no way they're ever trying that again. What's weird about this though is that fans didn't complain nearly as much about a set that was only sold in airports. To be more specific, a singular airport in Billund, Denmark. The set I'm talking about is, funnily enough, the Billund Airport set, and it never saw a shelf outside of the airport in Billund. This is by far one of the most exclusive sets LEGO's ever released. So exclusive, in fact, that it's part of the LEGO internal theme. If you've never heard of this theme, this is basically the home of the most exclusive sets LEGO's ever released. Most of them are sets that LEGO actually gave to employees over the years, but I somehow feel like the Billund Airport set was harder to get. It was sold in 2014 and has been retired for a while now, so this is a set that none of us are probably ever seeing. While I'm talking about super exclusive LEGO items though, I have to tell you about the minifigure business cards. If you've ever seen a minifigure with a LEGO logo and some random name on the front of it, you might have been confused about where it came from. Well, up until late 2023, LEGO actually made these minifigures for their high-ranking employees. It'd have their name on the front and contact information on the back. See why they were called business cards? These employees were literally handing out minifigures to network with people. I'm not sure why, but unless your last name is Christensen, you won't be getting a minifigure business card anymore. In other words, you have to be a part of the family to get one, which is honestly a shame. Cool minifigures are a big part of what makes LEGO so great, but another part is how inclusive LEGO is as a company. Back in 2016, LEGO released the first minifigure with a disability, and it was a super big deal. A bunch of different news outlets were talking about it, some even as big as NPR. He made his first appearance in the Fun in the Park set from 2016. This set is already super well known, but with this minifigure, it was bound to be huge. The disabled minifigure is the one sitting in a wheelchair petting a dog, having fun in the park just like the set intended. This was super big for LEGO. I mean, how often do you see them in the news? Usually when this happens, it's in the LEGO Advent Calendar. If you've never heard of this before, first of all, I apologize. But second of all, it's super sick. It's basically just a roadmap of every holiday-themed set LEGO's releasing in the coming days. Most of the time, the sets release all the way up until Christmas, but how long has LEGO been doing this for? Well, the first Advent Calendar actually came out back in 1998. A lot of the holiday sets from the late 90s had a Santa Claus minifigure, and were in the LEGO Basic theme, but nothing was more exciting than seeing a set that you know for sure is coming out. As the years went on, LEGO expanded on this idea a lot, and made different calendars for a ton of different themes. One that I remember super well was the LEGO Star Wars Advent Calendar from 2012, which had this really cool Darth Maul minifigure. They made one for basically every theme that was super popular at the time. LEGO City, LEGO Pirates, LEGO Castle, you name it. If it was famous, they probably made a calendar for it. Naturally, LEGO Star Wars fell into that category, but did you know that Star Wars was actually the first licensed sets LEGO's ever released? They partnered up back in 1999, and it's genuinely crazy how big the theme got in such a short amount of time. It was basically the only thing I ever wanted growing up, and even today, it's still one of their biggest themes ever. They started out by making sets based on The Phantom Menace, since at the time, that was the most recent Star Wars movie. Very soon after that though, they started making sets based on the old movies, like the Snowspeeder, Luke's Land Speeder, and way more. As we all know, this expanded into things like the Ultimate Collector series and the best LEGO video games ever made. I have to say though, I'm pretty thankful LEGO had some experience with video games before for the Star Wars games, because they could have easily messed it up like they did with LEGO Universe. This was LEGO's first ever MMO, which they released in 2010. Just 2 years later though, it was gone. It was supposed to be LEGO's version of World of Warcraft, since that was one of the biggest games at the time, but it just fell flat on its face. Oddly enough, these days it actually has a lot of supporters. Like, there's an entire subreddit dedicated to the game. And in 2021, LEGO added a whole page to their website about the game. They even released a never-before-seen soundtrack, which happened to be composed by Brian Tyler, who's now one of the most famous composers in Hollywood. The story with this game is honestly just downright confusing. Was the game good? Was it bad? I can't really figure it out. But clearly a lot of people like it. Another story LEGO fans seem to love is the goat piece. You might have seen this piece if you've ever watched a video about the rarest LEGO pieces, but that actually isn't true anymore. Kind of. The brown spotted goat was only put in one set from 2011. For the longest time, this was a huge meme in the LEGO community, but after 13 years, LEGO finally brought him back. In Series 25 of the LEGO minifigures, for some reason, a white goat was thrown into the mix. Now, technically it isn't the same thing, but there's more to the story here. People weren't just laughing that some random goat had only been in one set. It went a lot deeper than that. The mold that LEGO used to make that goat had only ever been used once. Most times, LEGO will use molds for a bunch of different pieces, but not that goat. For some reason, it's only shown up twice in LEGO's entire career. It's pretty funny, but it's still crazy at the same time. In Season 2, Episode 4 of Stranger Things, Chief Hopper goes to investigate a pumpkin patch at a local farm. This ended up being a super important investigation, since it revealed so much about the Upside Down. You can't see it once the LEGO set is complete, but if you take a look at the instructions, you'll see that there's actually a pumpkin piece in the back of Hopper's car, referencing the pumpkin patch that he investigated. This is just one of the 21 Easter eggs in today's video, so make sure you watch all the way until the end. You won't believe that these LEGO Easter eggs are actually real. Up next is a super secret Easter egg in the Minecraft crafting box set, but the only way you can find it is if you take the whole thing apart. Before you do that though, look at what this part of the set actually looks like. Okay, got it in your head? Now look at what happens when you take a few parts off. The base of this set is actually a map of the set itself. It's super subtle, and you might not notice it even if you build it yourself. But if you built this next set, there's no way you'd miss this Easter egg. I'm talking about the LEGO Magic of Disney set. You can detach a lot of this set without taking apart any pieces, including some parts of Mickey Mouse. If you pop off the left arm, you'll find a brick-built pattern of Woody from Toy Story. Now, usually LEGO designers won't make their Easter eggs this obvious, but this one wasn't actually made by a LEGO designer. This set is part of the LEGO Ideas theme, which means a fan made this set, not one of LEGO's designers. The fans' favorite kids movie is Toy Story, so they wanted to pay homage to their favorite cowboy without fully including him in the set. Nice touch. Up next, the fourth Easter egg is hidden inside the LEGO Harry Potter Gringotts Bank set. Since this LEGO set is based on a movie series, there are loads of Easter eggs to choose from, but there's a certain one that's obviously the coolest. There are 3 vaults in this set, but I want to talk about the one at the bottom. This vault belongs to Bellatrix Lestrange, one of the main villains in the series. We see her vault in the Deathly Hallows Part 2, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione go looking for a Horcrux. While they were in there though, everything they touched started to duplicate, which made things very difficult for them. Now, you'd think there was no way to mimic this in a LEGO set, but you'd actually be wrong. If you open up Bellatrix's vault and push on the wall in the back, a bunch of golden goblets show up out of nowhere. They may not be duplicating, but this is a super cool way to reference that scene from the movie. If we're gonna talk about references though, then I have to show you this insane reference in the Legend of Zelda Deku Tree set. When you think of an Easter egg, you usually think about something hidden, but this one is actually in plain sight. After you build Link's house, you might notice a sign with a bunch of squiggles all over it. This isn't just any sign though. It's written in the language Hylian, and it reads, "It's a secret to everybody." This sentence is an Easter egg throughout the entire Zelda franchise, so it's awesome that LEGO continued the legacy in their set. While I'm talking about the Deku Tree set though, there's one more Easter egg that you just have to know about. In the Zelda games, there's a big plant-like character named Hetsu, who famously holds a pair of maracas. Well, you can actually build Hetsu in this set. And look, he even has his maracas too. Want to know something crazy though? They actually make noise. Listen to this clip. This was super easy to pull off too. All you had to do was put a stud in each maraca. It's simple, but it works really well, and it's a great Easter egg for true Zelda fans. Up next is a super funny Easter egg in the LEGO City Undercover video game. When it comes to video games, most Easter eggs are either secret endings or hidden items, but this one is totally different. This LEGO game is based on the LEGO City theme. Nothing more, nothing less. But for some reason, there's a Mario mystery block you can actually interact with. This game came out all the way back in 2013, so fans thought LEGO was hinting at a LEGO Mario game. But 11 years later, we still don't have that game, so the devs really just did this for fun. This next Easter egg though is probably the funniest thing you've seen in LEGO. As you probably know, LEGO loves hiding pieces inside of brickheads. There's a plant inside Eve, a small brain for Homer, and way more. But what do you think they put inside the Woody from Toy Story brickhead? Well, they actually put a few pieces of stuffing, which is hilarious, but it's also true. In Toy Story 2, when Woody was getting fixed, we saw on his arm that he was actually made of stuffing. Since I showed you Woody though, I have to show you what LEGO did for the Buzz brickhead too. Buzz isn't a doll like Woody. He's an action figure, so the stuffing pieces won't work here. So instead, LEGO threw in some makeshift battery pieces. Just like how we saw what Woody was made of in Toy Story 2, we saw Buzz's batteries in Toy Story 3 when he got reset by Lotso. So both of these Easter eggs are accurate with the movies. When it comes to movies and TV shows though, LEGO never misses their mark with Easter eggs. In the LEGO Batman the Animated Series Gotham City set, there are too many references and Easter eggs to count. But there's one in here that definitely stands out from the rest. All the way in the bottom right of the set, there are two gray pieces sitting right next to each other. Looking at the shape, you might think they look like gravestones. And, well, that's because they are. These two gravestones represent Batman's parents, which is definitely a little morbid, but just wait, it goes deeper. If you take off the piece the gravestones are attached to, you'll find two brown ingots, and these are meant to be their coffins. I guess not every LEGO Easter egg has a happy ending. Up next is one of the funniest Easter eggs in all of LEGO, and it's in the LEGO Ninjago City Market set. This set is pretty big, having over 6,000 pieces, so it's a little difficult to find Easter eggs. But if you actually built this set yourself, there's no way you'd miss it. If you look at the top of the set, you'll see a bathroom, and believe it or not, this is where the Easter egg is. The toilet in this bathroom actually flushes and sends the poop through a drain system to the outside of the set. It's by far one of the funniest Easter eggs in LEGO, but it is pretty well known, so let me show you one that I guarantee you haven't seen before. This is the LEGO Paranormal Intercept bus set, part of the now retired theme Hidden Side. The bus is basically just a giant lab for the minifigs to work in. But what does every lab need? A computer. In the back of the bus, there's a micro PC setup with two monitors. Do you see it yet? The left monitor is showing a LEGO Bionicle game that's been canceled for years. The last time this video game was even playable was 2005, so people didn't even really know what it was. The Easter egg in this next set though is one that everyone recognized. This is the LEGO Bowser set, and since it's Mario, you already know there's gonna be some Easter eggs in here. First of all, Bowser can shoot a fireball out of his mouth, but that's not even what I'm here for. Once you build the set, you'll have this podium that Bowser is meant to stand on. Well, if you knock over the right pillar, it'll reveal a secret power box from the Mario video games. These power boxes are super helpful in game, and they're usually a little hard to find too. So it's cool that LEGO brought that theme over to this set. But if you thought that was it for LEGO Mario Easter eggs, forget about it, because I got one more for you. This is the LEGO question mark block set, and no, the Easter egg isn't just that you can reveal the 3 different worlds. In fact, it has nothing to do with the 3 worlds at all. It's completely hidden. If you go to the front of the block, there's a part of it you can actually pull up, revealing a secret Bowser lurking in the shadows. That isn't all though. If you take Bowser out and press down on what he was standing on, a secret battle arena will pop out at the bottom. This isn't just any battle arena though. This represents Bowser's Stadium from Super Mario 64, a classic level that a ton of Mario fans love. I know people aren't the biggest fans of these Mario sets, but you gotta give it to LEGO. These Easter eggs really are next level. But LEGO might have outdone themselves with this next Easter egg. If you watched my first video on Easter eggs, you might remember me talking about a laundromat laundering money in the Brick Bank set. Well, LEGO actually kept this Easter egg going in this police station set from 2021. On the right side of the police station building, there's a billboard from the laundromat that was doing the money laundering. This is one of the only times I've seen LEGO bring an Easter egg across multiple sets, especially one that they made themselves, so it was pretty cool to see. This next Easter egg though is probably one of the coolest ones in this whole video. Way back in 2006, LEGO released the LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy video game. But there's a certain spot on Tatooine that you might have missed. In the Mos Eisley spaceport level, there's a giant sign promoting the LEGO Star Wars movie. Well, if you walk under the sign and swap to R2-D2, you can actually get inside this movie theater and see the LEGO Star Wars movie on the big screen. All you have to do is break the lights and chairs, rebuild them, and bam, the movie starts playing. Technically, it isn't a real movie. It's just cutscenes from the first LEGO Star Wars video game. But it's still sick either way. While I'm talking about LEGO Star Wars, let me show you an Easter egg in the 40th anniversary Death Star set. If you go around the side of the Death Star and pull down one of the panels, two studs will be sitting there. One black and one beige. Well, these studs actually represent Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader when they fought on the Death Star in the Return of the Jedi. LEGO loves doing stuff like this in micro builds, like they did it in the little hand set too. On the inside of the ship, there's a yellow and brown stud sitting right next to each other, and these two represent Obi-Wan and Anakin when they crash landed on Coruscant in the beginning of the Revenge of the Sith. There are a lot more Easter eggs just like these two in LEGO Star Wars sets, but let's just move on to the next Easter egg. The 19th Easter egg is hidden in the Lord of the Rings Rivendell set, and would you believe me if I told you it was actually evil? I know it may not look like it, but there's an evil here lurking in the depths, literally. If you take off the circular piece with all the chairs on it, you'll find a giant eye of Sauron sitting right there. Sauron is the Dark Lord in the Lord of the Rings series, and this eye is his symbol, so this is definitely a bad omen for Frodo and the gang. Let's move away from that though, and take a look at the Amazing Spider-Man art set. There isn't a lot of room for Easter eggs here, but I promise, there's one here for sure. This set came out in August of 2023, which is important to know because it came out after Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. There were a bunch of new characters in that movie, but one of the most popular ones was Spider-Man 2099. Now, take a look at the box for the Spider-Man art set. Notice anything? Well, this set comes with exactly 2,099 pieces. Listen, you might think I'm reaching here, but just remember, no LEGO reference is done by accident. The designers always know what they're doing. And for the last Easter egg in this video, I have the perfect example of that. This is the Tales of the Space Age set, made in April of 2023, and it's actually a really tasteful set. With the 688 pieces, you can build 4 different 3D postcards, all of which look like a completely different part of the universe. As you can see, all of them have different color palettes, because the artist wanted to show what sunsets might look like on different planets. Speaking of the artist, this is where the Easter egg comes in. The man who designed this set has a name I can't pronounce, but all that matters is that he's Polish. Now, if we take a look at the back of these postcards, you might notice something at the bottom of them. On the blue and green postcards, there's a white piece and a red piece stacked on top of each other. Well, these very out-of-place colors were placed there by the Polish designer, and these pieces are the Polish flag. LEGO designers love slipping in Easter eggs about themselves when they build sets, and what better way to do it than with this super subtle flag on the back? What was your favorite Easter egg in this video? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.